historical narrative, memory reductionism, Hayden White's metahistory, and hello! My name's Valeria. I'm already a certified philosopher, having successfully finished my defense at KNU. And during my student years, I attended a fascinating semester of lectures on the philosophy of memory by Vladimir Vladimirovich. I hope he's not watching this. Now, in 15 minutes, without a lot of high-flown words, I'll explain to you how people, society, and the state erase, construct, and rewrite the past. First of all, why should we even get into these philosophical weeds? Alternatively, why dig into what has long since passed? To avoid looking like a dad in front of the TV, foaming at the mouth to defend some historical justice, blindly believing the first video he sees from some random Ren TV. To be an erudite person? We settled on the answer to that question. Let's move on. For those not interested in cognitive science, which is most of us, it's common to think that memory is like a hard drive, where folders with photos and objective facts are constantly uploaded throughout life. But modern cognitive science and philosophy prove that memory is more like clay than a hard drive, and the hand molding it isn't necessarily a reptilian's or a president's, but yours. You rewrite your memory every day. In philosophy and sociology, 3 basic rational strategies are identified for how exactly we rewrite and consolidate memory. The 3 pillars on which any ideological, historical illusion rests. Let's figure it out. So, strategy 1, enunciation, or in other words, ritualization. We take one almost random event out of millions of others and consciously or unconsciously designate it as the main one, turning it into a ritual. It could be your birthday, January 1st, or another major religious holiday. And it's precisely on such random events that a biography is based, whether it's your personal history or the history of an entire country. The thing is, it doesn't rely on logic or facts at all. Technically, Tuesday is no different from Wednesday. Maurice Halbwachs proved that memory needs spatial and temporal anchors, because without them, society would simply fall apart into atomized neurotics who just go to work and pay taxes. We need glue, and that glue is ritual. But enunciation has another, much more powerful and, frankly, somewhat creepy function. Ritual doesn't just preserve memory, it literally constructs our identity. Identity is not something you're born with, it's something you join. For a group of people, whether it's a whole nation, your local Telegram channel group of 12,000 people, or an alternative history lovers club, to feel like a single whole, it needs a shared myth. And enunciation provides that myth. We're the same blood, we remember the same things, they think. Let's break it down simply. Let's take any classic conspiracy theory. For example, that the Egyptian pyramids were built by aliens. Why is it impossible to convince such people otherwise? Because their belief in this myth is their daily ritual of enunciation. Take away their secret knowledge, and they'll just be ordinary middle managers again. A myth from the past makes them the chosen ones in the present. In the philosophy of memory, there's a German classic, Jan Assmann. Now, average Joe thinks, I remember what actually happened. But Assmann sits down and says, Joe, you're wrong. Your cultural memory isn't what happened. It's what you need to remember today to stay yourself tomorrow and not fall out of society. So a ritual takes a piece of the past, molds it into a myth, and uses it so that today we clearly understand who we are and who we're supposed to dislike. Strategy 2. Construction. From school, kids are told that a history textbook is a direct retelling of the past, and a historian's job is just to collect facts. But we don't study philosophy just to remain naive. And if you still believe that history is objective, you're that dad in front of the TV. It's time to throw off the shackles of alcoholic psychosis. The thing is, history isn't objective reality at all. As my professor used to say, how do you even know about history if not from historians? It's just the art of creating a powerful, convincing narrative. In the past, millions of events happened every second. Someone fought, someone sneezed, someone traded grain. And all of that is just information noise. A historian takes all these facts and filters them, picking the ones they need. The rest, of course, are ignored. Then they pack these selected facts into the coolest, most convincing, interesting story, a narrative, to prove their version of events is the best. But importantly, true historical science must rewrite the past when new data and perspectives emerge. The third and simplest strategy is substitution, the foundation of any ideology. Because to sell any complex idea to the masses, you have to strip it down to a comic book level. So people are given the illusion that they understand everything, while reality is simplified to the max. And because of this, a situation of so-called pseudo-identity arises. Now, let's apply this high theory to a very simple, everyday example. Suppose your grandpa got drunk at the cottage, fought a neighbor, broke a fence, and fell asleep in the greenhouse. 10 years have passed since then. How does the family's memory work? Ritualization. Every year, you gather for the May holidays and remember that day. Let's say the day of the broken fence. The details are forgotten, but the feeling of togetherness is what matters. Construction. You build a narrative. Grandpa didn't just get drunk, he was expressing an existential protest against the neighbor's Philistinism, breaking physical boundaries for freedom, meaning the fence. You've constructed a new meaning, substitution. The old lady next door simplifies everything for her ideology. They're all just crazy drunks over there, she says. And so she gets a pseudo-identity as the perfect neighbor against the backdrop of your degenerating family. I hope you listen to the end. Please write if you listen to the end. I have issues with retention. YouTube says that no one watches my videos all the way to the end. Lighten up.